The sky above the colony burned gold and red as the twin suns dipped toward the horizon. Commander Elias Marin stood on the observation deck of the main dome, hands folded behind his back. He was a tall man with a quiet face, his eyes sharp like they had learned to expect trouble. Around him, the world looked peaceful children running between the domed houses. Hydroponic towers shining in the fading light, and repair drones buzzing softly like tired bees returning to their hive. But Elias knew peace was never permanent on this side of space. He had just returned from a diplomatic flight to one of the outer stations when the alert signal echoed across the colony. A low hum. Then the long, deep siren that meant something big was coming. Within minutes, the clear sky was broken by a shadow at first. The people thought it was a storm, maybe a dust wind rolling down from the North Ridge. But then the stars disappeared behind a fleet. Not a small scouting group. A full royal armada. The Zellery Dominion had arrived. Their ships were nothing like the small, practical vessels the colony used. They were massive, curved like long silver bones, their surface pulsing with faint blue lines. Each ship moved with silent precision, sliding into formation around the planet like they had done it 100 times before. At the center of the formation was the Queen's flagship, a structure so large it looked like a floating palace with wings of glass. Elias didn't move when the first communication came through. He stood still, listening. "This is the Dominion," a voice boomed through the speakers. It was cold and clear, every word perfectly sharp. "By royal decree, your colony is required to enter immediate alliance with Her Majesty, Queen Treva. Refusal will lead to occupation." The words hung in the air like a weight. People around the dome whispered, gasped, or froze. The older colonists knew what occupation meant. The Zellery didn't usually kill, but they took control. They controlled trade, air, food, everything. A colony under their boot became a silent place where every choice was made for you. The young technician looked at Elias with wide eyes. "Commander, what do we do?" Elias didn't answer right away. He watched the fleet, his mind moving fast. "We prepare the council," he finally said. "And we keep the people calm. Panic is the first thing they want." The council chamber was already crowded when he entered. 12 members sat around a circular table made of dull metal, their faces showing different emotions: fear, frustration, cold calculation. Senator Margot Hanley, sharp in her gray suit, was already shouting across the table at Captain Holt, head of security. "You can't just fight them," Margot snapped. "They could burn us down in a day. And giving in without a fight means they'll rule us forever," Holt barked back. His broad shoulders were tense, his jaw locked. "They're bullies, Margot. Bullies don't stop if you hand them what they want." Elias took his seat in the center. The arguments quieted. People trusted him, even when they disagreed. He wasn't loud, but his words had a way of cutting through noise. "The fleet arrived less than an hour ago," Elias began, "and they already issued a demand. That means they came prepared. This is not negotiation. It's an ultimatum. And you know what they want, don't you?" Margot asked, crossing her arms. Elias nodded slowly. "Yes, a binding alliance. But not just paperwork. They want something symbolic." The counselors exchanged worried glances. They had all heard rumors. The Dominion had used the same tactic on other worlds. A political marriage, an heir bound to their royal line. It was old and ceremonial, but it carried real power. If one of their people married a Dominion royal, the Dominion gained the right to protect the world forever. The screen at the end of the room flickered. A tall figure appeared, silver armor, a crown like carved crystal, eyes glowing faint blue. Queen Treva herself. Her voice filled the chamber, smooth, cold, commanding humans. "I speak not as conqueror, but as ruler of the Dominion. You live on a world within my reach. Your technology, your trade lanes, your harvest stall rely on our protection. You may keep your little colony, but only if you prove your loyalty." Elias leaned forward slightly. "And if we don't?" The Queen's lips curved just a little. "Then the stars around your world will close. No shouting. No threats. Just quiet certainty." A silence swept through the chamber. The queen continued. My daughter, Princess Lyra, is of age. She will be given to this world as a symbol of unity. She will marry a human leader chosen by your council. This will bind your colony to the Dominion. Peace, prosperity, safety, and if we refuse, Holt asked, though he already knew the answer, then you will have no trade, no passage, no protection. And eventually, nothing. The image blinked out. The chamber filled with noise-angry voices, desperate questions, overlapping fears. Elias sat still. He had fought wars before. He had seen what quiet threats could do. This wasn't about marriage. This was about power, Margot spoke above the noise. She didn't say they'd attack us. Just isolate us. We can't survive without off-world trade. Our supplies won't last a year, and marrying off one of our people solves that, Holt spat. We become their pets. She said we choose who, another counselor added carefully. If it keeps us alive, maybe Elias raised a hand. The room fell quiet again. No one decides that tonight, he said. We don't make choices out of fear. A few hours later, the Queen sent an escort shuttle down to the colony. It landed in the central square, its surface smooth and white like a pearl. Out stepped Princess Lyra, surrounded by armored guards. She was tall, with pale blue skin that shimmered faintly in the sunlight. But what struck Elias most was not her beauty, was the expression on her face. Calm, controlled, but behind her eyes, something flickered. She didn't look like someone walking into a celebration. She looked like someone walking into a cage. She walked forward and met Ilias's eyes. Commander Moran, she said in a clear voice. My mother wishes to meet you at dawn. She wants your answer. He nodded. We don't rush decisions here. No, she said quietly. Then, in a lower voice, only he could hear, neither do I. They met in a quiet garden outside the colony dome. No guards, no crowd. Just two people who stood on opposite sides of a dangerous bargain. You don't want this either, Elias said. It wasn't a question. Lyra exhaled slowly, her breath visible in the cold night air. In the Dominion, queens do not ask. They command, why you? Because I'm the youngest. Because my mother wants to tie this world to her legacy. And because... Her voice softened. She thinks humans are predictable. Elias tilted his head. Are we? She gave a small, tired smile. Not always. For a moment, neither spoke. The sounds of the colony at night were softer. Generator humming, distant laughter from a mess hall, the faint buzz of night drones. Why tell me this? Elias finally asked. Because I don't want a marriage built on force, Lyra said. I want a real alliance. If your people can prove they have something the Dominion needs, something worth respecting, we can change the shape of this. Elias narrowed his eyes. What do you mean? Lyra looked up at the sky. My mother values strength. But not only in war, she values control over the gates. He knew what she meant. The quantum relay, a massive station in deep orbit. It connected trade routes, kept the Dominion's ships moving safely. If it failed, their power here would falter. And lately, it had been failing. No one could fix it. Not even the Dominion's best engineers. What if humans fix it? She said softly. Without bowing, Elias didn't answer right away, but his mind moved fast. The humans had repaired old Earth tech with scraps. They had kept their colony alive with clever tricks and stubborn courage. If they could fix the relay, Queen might see them as more than weak settlers. She'll still expect an answer, Elias said. She'll expect you to break, Lyra replied. Don't. The next morning, the Queen's hologram filled the council chamber again. She looked even taller up close, every movement controlled and perfect. Have you chosen? She asked. Senator Margot spoke first. We are still. Elias rose from his seat before she could finish. We have not chosen, but we have something to offer. The Queen's icy gaze fixed on him. Offer. The relay, he said. It's unstable. Even your ships are taking detours. We can fix it. A faint shift passed through her face. Not quite surprise, but interest. Humans. Yes, We built this colony with less than what that relay has. Give us access. If we fail, you can do what you planned. But if we succeed, then you'll have something better than a forced bond. You'll have a partner." The council held its breath. The Queen's silence stretched long. Then finally, she said, "Very well. You have 48 hours." The image vanished. Margot whispered, "Are you out of your mind?" "Maybe," Elias said calmly. "But I'd rather gamble with a relay than a person's freedom." Within the hour, the human engineering teams gathered at the docks. Elias walked among them, giving quiet instructions. They were ordinary people, mechanics, programmers, pilots, but they had one thing the Dominion often underestimated: creativity. As they boarded the shuttle, Lyra approached him. She was dressed in simpler clothes now, the royal armor replaced by something softer. Her eyes held both hope and fear. "You just changed the game," she said. He shrugged lightly. "Let's hope we can play." She hesitated, then added quietly, "My mother respects results. If you succeed, she can't ignore it. And if we fail?" Lyra's jaw tightened. "Then you'll still stand taller than most who ever faced her." The Dominion relay hung in deep orbit like a broken crown. Giant Re. The suns rose slowly over the horizon, painting the sky with a pale gold light. Commander Elias Marin stood outside the council dome, looking up at the massive fleet still hanging above the planet. The alien ships shimmered like silent watchers, each one larger than the biggest structure the colony had ever built. But today was not like yesterday. Yesterday, the fleet had come as a threat. Today, it hovered above a colony that had proved it would not kneel. The relay was alive. The Dominion's trade gates were running at full strength again because of human hands. Every ship in the fleet had benefited from it overnight. Navigation lines were steady, and dozens of freighters that had been delayed for months now moved freely. It was a message no one could ignore. Elias knew the Queen would call soon. And this time, the conversation would not be one-sided behind him. Senator Margot walked out of the dome with a tablet in her hand. Her sharp face was softer than usual. "You should know," she said. "We just got messages from 3 other human colonies. They saw what happened. There." Proud Elias gave a faint smile. "Pride won't stop the Queen." "No," Margot said quietly, "but it will make her think." The loudspeaker chimed. The Queen's personal envoy requested a meeting at midday. This time, the location wasn't the council chamber. It was the surface landing Corda neutral ground where humans and aliens could meet face to face. That detail alone was important. It meant she had taken the colony seriously. By the time the Queen's shuttle landed, entire square was surrounded by security drones and silent observers. Her ship was black and silver, its shape like a spear and a crown combined. When the ramp lowered, Queen Treva descended with all the grace of a ruler, who had never needed to raise her voice to command respect. She was tall, dressed in ceremonial silver robes, with blue light running across their fabric like flowing water. Dozens of Dominion soldiers followed, their steps perfectly synchronized. But she was the only one who spoke. "Commander Elias Marin," she said. Her voice echoed across the landing court. "Your people fixed what my Dominion could not." Elias stood straight, his uniform simple compared to her shining robes. "We did what needed to be done." A faint smile touched her lips. It was not warm, but it was real. "Humans," she said, "are full of surprises." Princess Lyra walked down behind her mother. Today she wasn't wearing royal armor. She was dressed like any young woman might dress to walk among people, soft fabric instead of metal. But she still carried the quiet strength in her eyes. She gave Elias a small nod, hidden from her mother's direct sight. It said everything without words. The Queen's gaze swept the crowd. People stood silent, some afraid, some proud, but all of them standing. She noticed it. "Yesterday," she said slowly, "I gave this world a choice: obey or be forgotten." No one moved. She continued, "And instead of begging, you gave me power I needed. You gave my Dominion what my own engineers could not. You brought the gates to life. Tell me, Commander, was this your way of refusing?" Elias met her eyes. "No," he said calmly. "It was our way of showing what kind of ally we can be." The queen tilted her head slightly. An ally, she repeated, tasting the word. Not a subject? Not a subject, Elias answered. The silence that followed was heavy. Dominion soldiers tightened their grip on their weapons. Human guards shifted nervously. But neither side moved to fight. This wasn't about force anymore. This was about respect. Later that afternoon, the queen requested a private meeting with Elias and the council. They gathered inside a clear glass hall built near the docks. The queen stood at one end of the long table, her tall figure framed by the sunlight outside. I came here to make sure this world is tied to my dominion forever, she said plainly. But what I have seen makes me reconsider the method. Margot folded her hands. We don't bend easily. The queen's eyes sparkled faintly. I have noticed. Elias kept his voice steady. You said your goal was an alliance. If we give you trade, if we stand beside you as partners, not servants, then your goal is achieved. One of the queen's advisors spoke up sharply. The royal bond. The queen raised her hand, silencing him instantly. She looked at Elias. And if I accept partnership, what guarantee do I have that humans will not turn their backs? Elias didn't blink. None. Just like we have no guarantee the Dominion won't crush us tomorrow. That's what makes trust real. It's not forced. The queen studied him for a long time. You speak like someone who has seen too many wars. I have, Elias said softly. That's why I choose peace when I can. Princess Lyra stepped forward then, her voice steady but not loud. Mother, let me speak. The queen turned to her daughter. For a second, the ruler disappeared, and a mother remained. Lyra walked closer to Elias. I came here prepared to be a symbol, she said. But I've seen what these people can do. They deserve more than to be ruled. They deserve to stand beside us. The queen's eyes softened slightly, but she still wore the weight of leadership. And what of tradition, Lyra? Tradition is meant to guide us, Lyra replied, not trap us. Elias didn't speak. He let the moment belong to them. It wasn't just a political discussion. It was a bridge being built in front of everyone. That night, the colony was quiet, but it was not a fearful quiet. It was the quiet before something important. On every street, groups of people whispered, wondering what would happen tomorrow. Some hoped for peace. Some feared a trap. But for the first time, most people didn't feel helpless. Elias walked along the garden path near the dome. Lyra stood there too, looking up at the stars. She turned when she heard his steps. Your people, she said softly, remind me of how my people used to be. Long ago, before my mother built the Dominion, Elias stopped beside her. Used to be? She nodded. We were explorers once, inventors, dreamers. Then power came, and with power came control. We forgot how to trust. He glanced at her. And what do you want? She looked at him with quiet determination. I want us to remember. For a moment, the garden was silent, except for the soft hum of night generators. Two people from two very different worlds, standing side by side, both tired of walls. Lyra continued in a quiet voice. Tomorrow my mother may still push for some form of bond, but she's not blind. What you and your people did shook the Dominion court. Many of her advisors already see the value in you. Elias gave a small smile. Then tomorrow we speak as equals. The next morning, the queen returned for the final decision. This time, she did not bring soldiers in parade formation. She brought diplomats. That alone was enough to make the entire council exchange surprised glances in the main dome. The humans gathered on one side, the Dominion on the other. The air was thick with tension and hope. Queen Treva began without delay. Humans, she said. Yesterday I came as a ruler. Today, I come as a negotiator, Margot whispered under her breath. That's a good sign. Queen turned to Elias. Your people have proved their worth. You fixed something my Dominion could not. You stood firm without violence. And you offered a hand instead of a fist. That is rare. Elias nodded slightly. We only wanted to be treated with respect. You will be, the queen said. Her voice was still powerful, but no longer sharp. I will not force your colony into royal bonds. Instead, I offer a new kind of alliance." The chamber filled with a low murmur. Even the Dominion advisors seemed slightly unsettled by the change. "This alliance," Queen continued, "will give your people open trade routes. It will give you shared access to the Dominion's technology. In return, your colony will maintain and guard the relay. It will stand as a free partner and ally, not a subject." Elias exhaled slowly. That was the best outcome anyone could have imagined. "But," the Queen added, her gaze steady, "this alliance must be built on trust. To make sure our peoples grow together, I will leave my daughter, Princess Lyra, as the first Dominion ambassador to your world. Not as a bride. As an envoy." Lyra stepped forward then. She looked proud, not trapped, not forced. She looked like someone finally free to choose her own path. Margot leaned closer to Elias and whispered, "That is bigger than we thought?" Elias said softly. "Yeah," the council stood. The humans agreed, not out of fear, but out of strength. The treaty was signed that evening in the colony square. The suns painted the sky pink and gold as the Queen and Elias stood side by side at a tall table. Thousands of people, human and alien, watched in silence. When the final symbol was marked on the treaty, the Queen extended her hand to Elias. For a long moment, two worlds touched through that handshake. It wasn't warm, but it was real. She spoke softly, just loud enough for him to hear. "I underestimated you, human," Elias replied. "A lot of people do." She gave a small laugh, not cold this time. "Perhaps this alliance will change that." When the Queen returned to her shuttle, the fleet didn't hover like an iron crown anymore. Half the ships slowly left orbit, heading back to Dominion space. Only a few remained to guard the relay and to support Lyra's new role. The sky suddenly felt a little wider. Weeks passed. The colony changed, but not in the way people feared. Dominion trade ships now came and went freely. Goods flowed both ways. Human engineers worked side by side with Dominion technicians on the relay and other projects. The once empty trade docks were full of activity and life. Most surprising of all, Lyra moved through the colony not as a ruler's daughter, but as a guest. She visited hydroponic farms, sat in classrooms,